Hey people, Nemesis Tech here, back with another video. Today's topic is parts lists. Reason being, parts lists for the US markets are plentiful. In that regard, my lists differ as my focus is for the European market. In total, I have researched 6 countries to make sure that these lists can apply to your local market and how the prices may differ. As for the builds themselves, the focus of all of them is clearly gaming, and they come in 3 different tiers. But from one PC to the next, everything is general purpose and can be used and optimized for any task you want to throw at them. For this video, you will find a spreadsheet containing everything you need to know linked down in the description. Without further ado, let's get the ball rolling with the entry level, or as I call it, the budget build. With the budget build, I wanted it to be capable, but obviously as affordable as possible. With this, you will clearly get the achievement of building it yourself. You will also have the first experience with overclocking, as the CPU is water-cooled. And yes, I managed to include watercooling into a €700 build. It's also a looker with RGB elements you can control at will. For the CPU, I went with the Ryzen 3 3300X, often touted as the best budget gaming CPU, and for good reason. With 4 cores and 8 threads, this chip has great multi-core power, while the high turbo clock speeds provide single-core speeds rivaling processors 3 times the price. And while you could skip the water cooling because a cooler is provided in the box, I would highly suggest keeping with the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 that will enable a useful and easy overclock to 4.4 GHz or even beyond. To ensure that the 3300X is not waiting for any data, we have a fast 2DIMM RAM kit, 16 GB of 3200 MHz RAM from Corsair. With this combo, not a single game should complain about insufficient memory. Both of these are fitted on the ASRock B450 Steel Legend motherboard. It's got enough power to overclock the 3300X, but it also gives you an upgrade path for up to 16 cores later down the line, and whatever next gen Zen 3 brings us. Also, it packs a bunch of USB ports and RGB on board, but make sure with the retailer that the BIOS is on the latest version. In fact, that goes for all the builds here. Make sure that you have a BIOS version that supports Ryzen 3000. As for the graphics, I have gone for a solid 1080p experience in terms of AAA games with high visual fidelity, as well as the possibility to get a high refresh rate when playing esports multiplayer games when needed. The choice fell on the Nvidia GTX 1660 Super with its blazing fast GDDR6. It is versatile and powerful enough to fulfill the requirements. On top of that, you will have the ability to stream and screen record with a built-in encoder in high quality, and that without losing performance. As for its performance, I will link in the description some articles from the German magazine PCGH for all the GPUs in the build, so that you can get a feeling for the capabilities. As for the rest of the parts, I have included a fully modular power supply from Silverstone with 80 plus bronze certification and 500 watts of working power. For storage, we have 240 GB SATA SSD from Patriot for the OS and a 1 TB hard drive from Seagate for all the games. Last but not least, and this is personal taste, but the MSI MagForge 100 hits a pretty spot. It's affordable, looks good, comes with 2 RGB 220mm fans and a non-RGB exhaust, a glass side panel, and the possibility to mount a radiator at the top. As for the components, I found the CPU in France, Poland and Italy, although for around 15% more money, and in Spain I didn't find the 3300X for any reasonable price. In those cases I would maybe go for the 3100 instead, but it's your choice. And with the overclock thanks to the water cooling, you can most likely get the 3100 to perform at 95% capacity of the 3300X. England straight up had it for £120, so go for it, it's a great deal. As for the GPU on the other hand, there is nothing comparable outside of the TI variant. Aside from England and Germany, you will have to take up to 40 euros more in hand to acquire one of these puppies. The next build, the mid-ranger, for this I was targeting something that would not only get you a 1080p Ultra or 2K high experience, the high refresh rate in esports is a given. This one will also get you starting on content creation. Video editing is in your grasp with this machine, all for around 1000 euros. 6 cores and 12 threads will give you that possibility as the banger deal of the century. The Ryzen 5 3600 puts everything to shame in terms of value. This one paired with 16GB of hyper-fast RAM I found will make this machine fly. For the RAM I even got options, and both are Samsung B-Die equipped, every RAM overclocker's dream. Get the G.Skill kit if you want RGB and the Ryzen optimized XMP setting. On the other hand, get the Patriot kit if you really want to get serious with RAM overclocking. Enabling both is the Asus ROG Strix B450-F motherboard. It looks crazy good, has a good pairing with a 6-core in terms of power delivery, and it's got all the bells and whistles. In this system the GPU gets a 40% performance boost with the RTX 2060 Super. It gives you the extra memory needed for 2K gaming and a solid entry into Nvidia's RTX, although I don't suggest using it for ray tracing in games. You can certainly try. I would rather use it for RTX voice and DLSS upsampling. Providing power to the system is the fully modular Silverstone 700 watts 80 plus gold unit. You can never really go wrong with Silverstone. As for storage, while the 1TB HDD remains here for the games, the OS drive gets a bump to NVMe and double the capacity. That will give you a performance uplift for that video editing and near quadruple sequential reads and writes compared to SATA. Holding all the components is the renowned Pantex P408 Digital, a mesh panel with 3 intake fans and a tempered glass side panel. Everyone in Europe should be able to get their hands on one of these, except for in Poland. There the 2060 Super was crazy expensive, although I could find a worthy replacement. AMD's RX 5700 XT throws out Nvidia's exclusive features but gets you more raw horsepower. In fact, the rasterization performance on this card comes closer to the 2070 Super than anything else. As for the high-end PC, let me start with a disclaimer. Don't buy it unless you need this performance now. This one stays relevant for about 3 months, as Nvidia will bring out new RTX 70 and 80 class cards based on historical data and the heat in the rumor mill. Going by the same data, the 60 class cards and under are still some ways off. That's why I will keep this one short. If you want details, keep to the list. Here I doubled up on the CPU core count with a Ryzen 9 3900X, 12 cores, 24 threads, and this time we also have the water cooler included. The Lian Li Galahad is brand new on the market and untested for the most part, but it costs as much as the brilliantly tested EK Water Blocks recommendation from my last video and has just as much RGB. Still, if you want to keep with the Lian Li theme of this build, it seems to be a good cooler nonetheless. I have doubled up the RAM capacity as well, just as much as I doubled the core count. That's getting us into really serious content creation. It's what I work with, and 4K is fully possible with 32GB of RAM. For this build, my choice in motherboard fell on the ASRock X470 Taichi. It's got one of the best power delivery circuits in the whole AM4 lineup. This beast is so powerful it can easily overclock the 16-core 3950X, and that's no small feat, something not even all new 500 series boards can boast about. What else do we have? The GPU. A 2080 Super gets you around 40 to 45% more performance in comparison to the 2060 Super from the last list, and it keeps its feature set, although this time it's worthwhile to play with real-time ray tracing. Storage gets a nice upgrade with the Samsung 970 EVO 1TB and the 4TB Seagate Barracuda HDD. The power supply gets just a small increase for the extra RGB in this build. It's 50 extra watts. Inside the Lee & Over11 Dynamic, we have 9 fans in total when counting the 3 included in the water cooling. The 6 extra ones are from Lee as well, fully RGB and controllable by CPU temps, a trait not all CPU fan units have. Lastly, to drag attention away from the minor black cables, we get the power cables to shine as well, believe it or not. Lee's Strimmer Plus cables, 24-pin and 8-pin PCIe extensions respectively, round everything up. With this, the RGB puke is at its highest. For 2,300 euros, this is pretty much as high-end as it gets, while still retaining some sort of value proposition, though as mentioned, not for long. If you're still interested, this one should be fairly simple to find for the targeted price in Spain, Italy and England. In France you will likely have to spend around 100 euros more for the CPU, and in Poland the GPU will demand 140 euros deeper pockets. With that said, if you have any questions, the comment section is there and I can help you out. If you find these parts lists helpful, the like button works wonderfully with uneven amounts of presses. The sub button helps me out immensely as well. Bye bye.